understanding. As long as you have an understanding of what we do, why we do what we do, you're good. All right. Um, we're gonna go ahead and get started. All meetings are to be opened and closed promptly according to the Circle 7 in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. All rise, please, and face the east for the Moorish American prayer. If this is anyone's first time, we rise facing the east, heels together. Your feet are at a 45-degree angle. We stand up straight with our arms perpendicular, holding 2 fingers up on the right, 5 on the left, facing the east, and repeat after me. Allah,
Allah,
the Father of the universe,
Father of the universe,
Father of love,
Father of love,
truth,
truth,
peace,
peace,
freedom,
freedom,
and justice.
and justice.
Allah is my protector,
Allah is my protector,
my guide,
my God,
and my salvation,
and my salvation,
by night and by day,
by night and by day,
through his holy prophet,
through his holy prophet,
Drew Ali.
through Ali.
Amen.
Amen.
Islamism. All right. Thank you, Moors, again for attending. I want to announce that this meeting is now open. First and foremost, we rise giving the highest praise to the Most High, our Father, God Allah. We also give honors to our illustrious prophet, Noble Drew Ali, for bringing us our divine creed and nationality so that we may learn to love instead of hate. We give honors to the forerunner to the prophet, our brother Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Excuse me. We also give honors to all the Adept sheiks and all the faithful Moors that make up the grand body of the Moorish Divine and National Movement. We give honors to the first appointed Supreme Grand Sheik by our prophet, and that's our brother E. Millie Ill. We give honors down to our current Supreme Grand Sheik, our brother K. Dandrigel. Honors to the Grand Council of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and honors to all the faithful Muslims on this call. Islamism. Brother Jackson Bey, if you're able to, please read the Divine Constitution and bylaws.
Islam, arise, giving perfect praise to Allah. Honor to our prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Honor to our forefathers and foremothers. And honors to the Asiatic nations and the Muslims all over the world. Salvation, Allah, unity, the Moorish Science Temple of America, the Divine Constitution and bylaws. Act 1, the Grand Sheik and the chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America is empowered to make law and enforce law with the assistance of the prophet and the grand body of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The assistant Grand Sheik is to assist the Grand Sheik in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Act 2, all meetings are to be open and closed promptly according to the Circle 7 in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest because on the Friday, the first man was formed in flesh, and on the Friday, the first man departed out of flesh and ascended unto his Father God Allah. For that cause, Friday is the holy day for all Muslims all over the world. Act 3, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. No member is to put in danger or accuse falsely his brother or sister on any occasion at all that may harm his brother or sister, because Allah is love. Act 4, all members must preserve these holy and divine laws, and all members must obey the laws of the government, because by being a Moorish American, you are part and partial of the government and must live the life accordingly. Act 5, this organization of the Moorish Science Temple of America is not to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of the said government, but to obey hereby. Act 6, with us, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and partial of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, Black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Drew Ali, the prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites, whom inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7, All members must promptly attend their meetings and become part and parcel of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Then you are entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble Jew Ali, through the guidance of his father, God Allah. Noble Jew Ali, founder, Moorish American prayer, Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation, by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Jew Ali. Amen. Moorish Science Temple of America, Home Office of Noble Jew Ali, Home Office, Chicago, Illinois, USA. Islam, Islam, Islamism. Happy Sunday.
Islamic gratitude, brother, gratitude. All right, today we're going to be in the Koran questionnaire going. Actually, if I could get a volunteer just to read through all the questions, just all 101 questions. We're really only going to focus on a few of them, but if somebody who has that questionnaire could please read those.
What's the number again? What number?
Well, if you could you read all of the questions?
Who made you? Allah. Who is Allah? Allah is the Father of the universe. Can we see him? No. Where is the nearest place we can meet him? In the heart. Who is Noble Jew Ali? He's Allah's prophet. What is a prophet? A prophet is a thought of Allah manifested in flesh. 7. What is the duty of the prophet? To save nations from the wrath of Allah. 8. Who is the founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America? Noble Jew Ali. 9. What year was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded? 1913 AD. 10. Where? Newark, New Jersey. 11. Where was Noble Jew Ali born? In the state of North Carolina, 1886. 12. What is his nationality? Moorish American. What is your nationality? Moorish American. Why are we Moorish Americans? Because we are descendants of Moroccans and born in America. 15. For what purpose was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded? For the uplifting of fallen humanity. How did the prophet begin to uplift the Moorish Americans? By teaching them to be themselves. What is our religion? Islamism. Is that a new or is that an old time religion? Old time religion. What kind of flag is the Moorish? It is a red flag with a 5-pointed green star in the center. What do the 5 points represent? Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. How old is our flag? It is over 10,000 years old. Which is our holy day? Friday. Why? Because Friday is the day on which man was formed in flesh, and it was on Friday when he departed out of flesh. Who is Jesus? He was a prophet of Allah. Where was he born? In Bethlehem of Judea, in the house of David. Who were his father and mother? Joseph and Mary. Will you give in brief the line genealogy through which Jesus came? Some of his great fathers through which Jesus came are Abraham, Boaz by Ruth, Jesse, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah, and Joseph by Mary. Why did Allah send Jesus to this earth? To save the Israelites from the iron hand oppression of the pale-skinned nation of Europe, and who were governing a portion of Palestine at the time. How long has that been? Around 2,000 years ago. What was the nationality of Ruth? Ruth was a Moabite. What is the modern name for the Moabites? Moroccans. What is the Moroccan Empire? Northwest Amexem. What is the modern name for Amexem? Africa. What is the title given to our ruler in Morocco? Sultan. Where do we get the name Jesus? From the East. What does the name Jesus mean? Jesus means justice. Did the angels give to the child that was called Jesus a holy name? Yes, but it cannot be used by those who are slaves to sin. What is an angel? An angel is a thought of Allah manifested in human flesh. What are the angels used for? To carry the messages to the four corners of the world, to all nations. What is our prophet to us? He is an angel of Allah who is sent to bring us the everlasting gospel of Allah. What is the everlasting gospel? It is a saving power that comes from Allah through our ancient fathers by his prophet. What is the covenant of the great God Allah? Honor thy father and thy mother, and thy days may be long upon the earth land, which the Lord thy God Allah hath given thee. At what age did Jesus begin to teach? At the age of 12. Where did he teach? India, Africa, and Europe. How long did he teach? 18 years. What did Jesus say that would make you free? Truth. What is truth? Truth is Ot. What is Ot? Ot is Allah. Can truth change? Truth cannot change or pass away. What other name do we give to truth? Holy breath. What have you to say about the holy breath? All we can say, it is great, it is good, it was, it is, and evermore to be. Amen. At what place on earth was the physical part of man formed? In the Garden of Eden. Where is the Garden of Eden? The land of Canaan in the city of Mecca. What is the modern name for the Garden of Eden? Mecca. What is the name of the first physical man? His name cannot be used only by executive rulers of the AC of the MSTA. What are the words of AC of the MSTA? Abduct Chamber of the Moslem Temple of America, Third Heaven. Who were Adam and Eve? They are the mothers and fathers of the human family, Asiatics and Muslims. Where did they go? They went into Asia. What is the modern name given to their children? Asiatics. Who is guarding the holy city of Mecca today to keep the unbelievers away? Angels. What is the modern name of those angels? Asiatics. What is the shade of their skin? Olive. Are the Moorish Americans any relations to those angels? Yes, we all have the same father and mother. Give the 5 names that are given to the descendants of Adam and Eve: Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, and beast. What is the devil sometimes called? The lower self. How many selves are there? 2. Name them: higher self and lower self. What people represent the higher self? The angels who protect the holy city of Mecca. What people represent the lower self? Those who were cast out of the holy city and those who accept their teachings. What is the higher self? The higher self is the mother of virtues and the harmonies of life, and breeds justice, mercy, love, and right. Can the higher self pass away? No. Why? Because it is Allah in man. What does the lower self breed? Hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harms. What did the higher self say to the lower self at one time when he met him? Where are you going, Satan? What was the answer the lower self gave to the higher self? I'm going to and fro the earth, seeking whom I may devour. Has he finished his task of devouring? Yes. When was his time declared out? When he nailed Jesus on the cross. What are the last words Jesus uttered? It is finished. What did he have reference to? He had reference to the end of Satan. Did Jesus say that he would return to conquer him? Yes. What is the name of the person into whom Jesus first reincarnated? Prophet Muhammad, the conqueror. Was Satan to be bound then? Satan was to be bound in part. When was the head of Satan taken off? 1453 Byzantine. By whom? By Muhammad. Name some the marks that were put upon the Moors of Northwest by the European nation in 1774. Negro, black, colored, and Ethiopian. Negro, a name given to a river in the West by Moors because it contains black water. What is meant by the word black? Black, according to science, means death. What does the word color mean? Color means anything that has been painted, stained, varnished, or dyed. What does Ethiopia mean? Ethiopia means something divided. Can a man be a Negro, black, color, or Ethiopian? No. Why? Because man is made in the image after the likeness of God, Allah. What title does Satan give himself? God. Will you define the word white? White means purity, purity means God, and God means the ruler of the land. To whom do we refer to at times as being the great God Allah? Is the devil made in the image and likeness of Allah? No, he is the shadow of our lower selves and will pass away. Who made the devil? Elohim. Who is Elohim? Elohim is the seven creative spirits that created everything that ever was, is, and evermore to be. What is Elohim? Sometimes called the seven eyes of Allah. How many days are in the circle? 7 days. How many days are in a creation? 7 days. According to science, how many days are in a year? 7 days. Islam.
Islam and gratitude, sister. Gratitude. Okay. So just looking back at this, question 90, can a man be Negro, black, colored, or Ethiopian? No. Why? Because man is made in the image and after the likeness of God, Allah. And question 85 says, name some of the marks that were put upon the Moors of Northwest by the European nations in 1774. And then we're given the answer, Negro, black, colored, or Ethiopian. So I want to talk about that real quickly, just looking at the wording that the prophet's using there. Name some of the marks that were put on the Moors by the Moors of the Northwest by the European nations in 1774. All right. So mark, when you mark something, for any children that's listening, when you get things wrong on your tests or on your schoolwork and it's getting marked wrong, right? The teacher's marking it wrong. They're marking it so that it sticks out from everything else, right? And so the prophet specifically using that word, mark, the marks that were put on the Moors. So in this context, the mark is a degradation, right? When you, in the slang term for mark, when someone's marked, they're a victim. They're out there to get taken advantage of. But they're specifically marking us, they're tagging us. And it's not by coincidence that the prophet used that term, mark. All right. Then you know what? Also in Revelations, in the Bible, we have the mark of the beast, right? In Revelations, talking about the end time events. We have the mark of the beast. And specifically, that's in Revelations 13, verses 16 through 17. 17 says, and that no man might buy or sell, save that he had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Now, when you're looking at that, when you look at what happened to us, which I wanted to talk about, how we got marked and how this applied to us. All right. So it's not a coincidence that the prophet used that term. We can look in history and look at what was going on with the Moors prior to even the Europeans arriving in the Americas. All right, if we rewind and go back to the Treaty of Granada, okay, in Al-Andalus, which we call Spain nowadays, okay, in the Treaty of Granada, you had one of the stipulations, right, that was concerning marks being put on the people. So the Treaty of Granada took place in 1491, 1492. What happened was the Moors, of course, they ruled a portion of Europe, and the stronghold of the Moorish Empire for a while was actually in Al-Andalus, which is called Spain now. It finally fell. They were at war in Granada. Granada was one of the capitals. They were at war for about 10, 15 years, starting in like the 1480s. And it finally ended in 1491 when Boabdil, who was a Moorish leader, Moorish ruler, actually sold the land. He sold Spain and the Moorish dominions to his cousins, his European cousins, his European Catholic cousins, which we could say Queen Isabel and King Ferdinand, all right, who were also of Moorish descent. All right, so he sold the Moorish dominions to them. And the thing you see up on the screen, that's from Wikipedia, but in the capitulation of 1492 had 67 articles that were in the Treaty of Granada. One of them, which is highlighted, says that no badge or distinctive mark be put upon them, as done with the Jews and Mudejares. Okay, so that was one of the stipulations in there. Like there's certain protections in there. He's like, okay, I'm signing this over to you guys, but you're not to abuse the Moorish people that are still here. Some of them are going to go into Africa, but some of them are staying behind, and you're not to abuse them, right? If you see some of the other stipulations that are in there, just for example, like they're to be given time if they want to leave to get their things, their affairs in order before they finally leave, right? And they're to be given some respect. But it says that no badge or distinctive mark be put upon them. And that's exactly what we're going through right now. This is what happened to us. So this started way back then because that was a plan. That was something that wound up coming into play later on with the Pope, marking all the people of Moorish descent as savages, godless people. And we have the right now to go over there and rule over them, civilize them. And one of the badges or the marks, obviously, would be the term Negro, right? They deemed us outside of the family of humans. Okay, so this was something that was actually put into place, right? And that was a treaty that they've actually broken. And that's something that maybe as a unit coming together to work together, we can do something about that to get remedy for this, right? But yeah, this was signed back on, as said earlier, about Thanksgiving. That was signed on November 25th, 1491, right? So you have one of the Moorish leaders, Sultan of Granada, and then Ferdinand and Isabella. These are his distant relatives. Signed the Moorish dominions over to them. Then it's not a coincidence that the very next year, Columbus is coming over here, right, with financing and support from Spain, right? These were a part of the dominions. Okay, and hang on a second. There's something else I wanted to show you too about specifically about these marks that were getting placed on us. Okay, which they broke the agreements. They weren't supposed to do this. Now, I just want to share this just to support the information that we're going over in the Koran questionnaire. But we've spoken before about the black codes that occurred here. We have that date of 1774. right? This is when the marks were put on upon the Negroes, or the Moors of the Northwest, which would specifically be referring to us, of course, here in the Americas. And then we're given that date by the European nations. This was done in 1774. We have something that actually occurred here in America, right? This is in Massachusetts. Okay, if you see up here on the screen, and it's saying just in fact, it's talking about different black codes. You had several black codes, several laws being passed that defined who the so-called Negroes were, the so-called black people, and then placed limitations on them. Okay. And so this one says it is an act prohibiting the importation of Indian or Negro or mulatto slaves. This was passed by the General Assembly of Connecticut in 1774. And just what I had highlighted here says this code ended the slave trade in Connecticut, although of course not slavery itself. And it marked the beginning of a century of, this is the part, it marked the beginning of a century of legislation that would establish the freedoms and rights of blacks in the state, right? So in 1774, this is one example in Connecticut, how they started to define the freedoms and the rights of blacks in their state. And so this is something that was occurring all over the place. And then furthermore, it says if slaves were gaining legal personality, they could in principle act as the agents of law. As examples, at the time of the American Revolution, there were in Connecticut petitions from associates of slaves that sought their collective emancipation. Then it's got like some petitions from people trying to get their freedom. But basically, they're gaining a personality. They're gaining an identity. A legal, you see how it says a legal personality? Right? And that status would be Negro or black. And it's being defined by somebody outside of our community, somebody from outside of us. So this one was in 1774, right? They're defining it. They're creating this and they're defining it, and then they're applying it to us based off of our appearance. Okay, and then it's something else I wanted to share too. This is from a paper. I think this was a dissertation. But as you can see, it says making blacks foreigners, right? The legal construction of former slaves. And it's basically speaking on how people who look like us, regardless of where you were born, where you lived, even if your parents were born here, you would be described as someone coming from Africa or coming from somewhere like Guinea, West Guinea, or somewhere, West Guinea, somewhere like that. They would describe you as being from Africa. Okay. And they had an incentive to do that. Okay. So this is something that was occurring, and it's actually recorded in history. We have people who had this happen during their lifetime, where it's known that they were from certain areas, lived there all their life, and they get slapped with this label of being from Africa. And there was a reason for it. So I just wanted to share this really fast. Hang on, there's something specific I was trying to show you. Well, you can see some of it, maybe you can see this, some of the things is highlighted. The person was just making commentary on how obviously we're not in the same position as other so-called immigrants, where we didn't even have a community that we could turn back to, that we could rely on. So states at this point in time, the early colonies, and later on as they became states, these different towns, they all had rules for dealing with people who were really from other countries, right? Because say somebody's from Ireland or something like that, which is actually one of the cases in here. Somebody's from Ireland, and as they got older, their health was breaking down and they needed assistance. And so they had to have rules for how to deal with these people. Who's the burden to take care of them? Whose burden is it? And so the town would say, it's not our burden, it's on the Commonwealth, right? Because this person isn't from our area. And so, you know, in the case for like what I was saying, somebody from somewhere in Europe, they would then give them a stipulation like, okay, we'll take care of them, we'll assist them for a certain amount of years, and then they got to get out of here. You know, we're going to send them back to where they came from. All right. And so, you know, there was a problem that was occurring with us because as we get into the 1700s, like we're saying, that time period, 1774, they had an influx of our people residing in these areas where the descendants of Europeans are setting up their societies as well, right? So they had to figure out how to deal with these people. All right. Being labeled a foreigner was basically having a legal disability. You can't vote. You can't shape society how you see fit. You can't run for office. You don't really have any voice in the society that you're living in, right? You're limited, right? As it's saying here, citizenship mattered insofar as it marked individuals who lacked it with traditional legal disabilities associated with the status of alien. Okay, so they're specifically like they're doing this on purpose, right? You can't hold any office, you can't vote, you can't hold any estate or inheritance. This also came into play in the 1800s when Abraham Lincoln served as the legal counsel for William Dungy, who had come into an inheritance. I don't remember if it was a sum of money or if it was land, but he came into an inheritance, and a distant relative who was of European descent accused him of being a Negro. Why? Because he looked like us. Like he didn't look like a European, okay? And so they accused him of being a Negro. Why? Because Negroes couldn't own anything, right? So even if this guy was from Kentucky or Illinois or something like that, Missouri, I think he was from Missouri, even if he's from this state and this is where he lived all his life and everybody knew that, they could say you're a Negro. And that means that you're from somewhere in Africa. All right. And so there was as it's saying here, there's a legal connection between the, hang on a second. Sorry. Basically, they had an issue where people who were from different cities or whatever in America, they would just vaguely be referred to as being from Africa, Guinea, the Gold Coast. All right. And that's just what they did, period. So if you're even looking up your own family history, you may have somebody who was an elder. They would just place that on them. Okay. And we have instances of that. I wanted to give you an example. I had a couple of people in here. There's a case where this guy in 1789, basically, there was a guy named George, says here, a Negro man that obtained his freedom by going into war in the year 1759. His feet were frozen. So he got frostbite. He lost his toes. So, you know, obviously he had a hardship, probably a hard time walking. The general court was graciously pleased to give him a pension of 40 shillings a year, right? So he was getting paid now because he was basically on disability, all right? And then they tried to flip that by saying that he was from Africa, okay? And it's saying here, down here, basically, they said that George was a native of Africa. Therefore, the petitioners from the town, they're petitioning the Commonwealth to take over his responsibility by saying that he's from Africa. We're not a duty to support him. And this is something that they pinned on everyone First off, they labeled him, they marked him as a Negro man, right? And this is something that they were doing to all of us based off of how we look. We've seen that before when we talked about the different acts, like the Negro Act of 1740 took place in South Carolina. All right, in 1740, there's the Negro Act, and it's basically defining anyone who looks like us. And it said from Indian to Negro to mulatto. So it's covering all these different skin tones and inflections that we might have and differences. It doesn't matter. If you look like that, you're a Negro. And the Negroes are from Africa, period. Okay? And so it's defining it, and then it's giving you this origin, this vague origin from somewhere. All right, so you're outside of everything. You're outside of the Constitution. You're outside of the family of humans, right? So, and then it's given a, in this same piece is given a just basic breakdown of that. This guy, George, they discounted his years of slavery. He had been enslaved, his military service, his residence as a free man in Massachusetts, all that was erased and rendered irrelevant because he was a native of Africa. But he wasn't born in Africa. He wasn't from Africa. This is just something that they're on the record putting this on us, right? And as it's saying here, the invocation of Africa, they're just invoking that on you, right? They just were bringing that up, like Negro from Africa, slave from Africa, just, you know, the Gold Coast. So this was happening, as it says here, in the early 1790s. Once again, what the prophet was saying, they were putting these marks on us. When? 1794. Right, so this is something that just everyone started doing, saying that you're a Negro and you're, you know, you were born in Africa, and it's literally had no basis in fact. This one's another example saying 1793 it happened. Somebody who was basically a pauper saying that basically they were poor, saying he was African born, so they're, you know, they're not liable to take care of him. Somebody else too was a woman this time, saying she's from Africa, 1794. She was brought to Boston when she was 7 years old. And it's like, this is just what they were doing, right? They just put that blanket statement of being from Africa on you. And this is how they got us. They literally were putting the marks on us at this time. And, you know, it's easy to overlook it. It's easy to overlook it, but it's actually been recorded in history if you know what to look for and if you know what you're looking at, right? This is another one too, saying accounts from several towns in the Commonwealth have been presented to them for expenses of supporting Indians, mulattoes, and Negroes. And as your committee are in doubt about admitting all such persons who became poor to the charge of the Commonwealth, they pray to the order of the court for this government in all such cases. And what they would do, they would just label all of these people as being from somewhere in Africa, being a Negro. First, they hit you with that mark because that mark means that you're from Africa. And in most cases, they all knew that the person was not from there, but that was the lie. They hit them with that. And one of these things I wanted to highlight, it says right here that therefore, if towns could surreptitiously pass off indigent former Massachusetts slaves as black migrants into Massachusetts, meaning they came from somewhere else, they could successfully shift the cost of supporting them onto the Commonwealth, thus making them de facto foreigners. Now, when you look at the source where this is coming from, it's saying that by representing indigent former Massachusetts slaves as black migrants, in addition to seeking to shift the cost of their support onto the Commonwealth, the towns trying to not be liable for them. All right, the towns were effectively assimilating former Massachusetts slaves into an energetically detested group. So everyone knew to look down on these so-called black migrants, these immigrants, right? These Negroes from Africa. And there was further legislation that had the provision, an infamous provision, stating that no person being an African or Negro other than a subject of the Emperor of Morocco or citizen of some one of the United States to be evidenced by a certificate from the Secretary of State, you had to have all this proof that you're a citizen if you look like us, basically. Like we always had to have papers on us. You got to have your papers to prove who you are, right? But there's a provision in there. Like this goes for all of us, unless you're a subject of the Emperor of Morocco or some other citizen of the United States. All right. So that was always in there. Why? Because we had a treaty. We had several treaties. And the one that it was talking about before this was the Treaty of Granada, which specifically said it had that stipulation in there that no badge or distinctive mark was to be put upon them, as was done with the Jews and the Mudejares, right? So the Muslims and the Jews had already suffered this type of behavior before. And so they're saying, specifically speaking about the Moors, that no badge or distinctive mark would be placed upon them. All right. So even when they're making their laws, that's why you'll see those stipulations. I believe that's even in the Negro Act of 1740. They always put that in there, right? A subject of the Emperor of Morocco or Egypt. Why? Because these are all Moors. It'll say Algiers or Libya. It's always in there. Okay. So just to be from somewhere in Africa, that's not what it's about. That's the game. That's how they played us. Right? Specifically removing us from our true line of descent and then just giving us a vague description, which places you outside of any lines of protections that you may have. All right. And then there's several other examples too, where this occurring. They started going real heavy though in the 1790s. So this is not a joke. I just wanted to add that because this is just in alignment with what the prophet brought. And we can see this actually occurring throughout history. The person who wrote this wasn't, obviously they weren't making this case, because they're not even asserting that we're possibly could be indigenous to this land. They're not even saying that. But if you know how to read between the lines, it's there. They're just saying how, this is kind of crazy that this was being done to us and nobody talks about it. Okay. So, yeah. And look, if anyone's done any history on their family, you may even see that if you're able to find some records of maybe like a great grandfather, grandmother, whatever, you may see something like that says, oh, West Guinea, Africa, Gold Coast. They just put that on us. It'll say Negro, born in this place, but that doesn't mean that it actually happened, because on the record, they were doing this to people who were from Ohio and Tennessee and all of these places. They were doing it to them just to keep them outside of the law, where they could be easily abused and taken advantage of. And we have proof of this occurring. Okay. And so, obviously they've broken the treaties and the agreements that were set up to keep us from being abused and taken advantage of. So I wanted to share that though, just so we have an understanding of how this was done and how it was done in real time. Okay. And even when you look at documents from history and you see this stuff that's saying someone was born in Africa, that could be a straight up lie, because they're on the record lying. It's a whole thing that they were doing that you won't know if you don't do any outside research to be able to recognize these things when you see it. All right. But I just wanted to share that. Did anybody else have anything that they wanted to speak on, any of the questions or question 85? Right. Okay. Another thing too, to reiterate on what was going on in this time. This is from Monticello.org about Thomas Jefferson, where he's speaking on us. Just he was saying basically that what says that he thought that white Americans, so-called white Americans, and enslaved blacks constituted two separate nations who could not live together peacefully in the same country. And then it says his belief that blacks were racially inferior and as incapable as children. And that's in quotation marks. So that's his quote, as incapable as children. And the reason that he would say that wouldn't just be just based off of racism. They created a situation that would make us as incapable as children, which is why they can call us minorities. Right. And why some of us take that and run with it like it's a badge of honor, because we don't know any better. We don't even realize like everything, the wording, literally, we're not, Moors aren't the only ones saying that Negro and Black are like legal statuses. That was in the, the passage I was just reading. It's real. It really is. And so, Black minority, that makes you a minor, right? As incapable as children. And that's why they felt a burden too. They're like, okay, because they're not giving you what you actually need, your connection to who you are, so that you can be independent and function and be successful, right? Because if you see, he wrote some more about it, saying that maintaining slavery was like holding a wolf by the ear, and we can neither hold him nor safely let him go, right? Like they want to keep us under their thumb. They feel like they had to, all right? And they wanted to keep us ignorant of who we truly are. And so, it really is the biggest thing, right? Because without knowing this, we are basically, as Jefferson said, as incapable as children. They put that in there specifically to keep us disconnected from the family of humans. All right. So it's really important to know this and to be able to demonstrate on it and teach this, and for us to move in our true status of who we are and self-define, because history has shown us that these people do not have our best interests at heart. Islam. Yeah, but if anybody else has anything they want to share, go ahead. I yield the floor.
Islam, Grand Sheik, spot on. It definitely on all that. And you can see it like even how it is in when we look at back with the prophet, you can look at it back in the ancient times, and you can look at it back in right now. It's still the same way. We do all the labor and the Europeans reap the benefits. Islam. I'm just looking at like how we look at it. So you know where our strengths are. We are the strength. We are the meat. Islam. I yield the floor.
Islam. And you right on with that. Like, they just reap the benefits from whatever we create, whether it's something we creating like a business, or something we creating with our mind, or the work, the physical work that we're doing, and it's not building us up at all. With that whole Negro thing, meaning that you're from somewhere in Africa, but you don't actually have any ties to any real geographic region. We don't have a specific region or any of that. So unlike other people who were real foreigners, right? As it says in this passage that I was reading, it says bona fide. You have bona fide foreigners, right? Who actually have a geographical region. They actually have laws. They actually have a place that they could go to, possibly, if things aren't working out here, right? So we didn't have that. And also, since they created that status to keep us on the outside looking in, it was difficult for us to do anything here, because when they created the black codes, the Negro Acts, they also limited our movement, what we could do. In many cases, once you got branded as a Negro from Africa, you could only be in that town for maybe a year or two, and you had to get on somewhere. You better get moving. That's how it was, right? So now we have to live like hermits and live like fugitives, yeah, living like gypsies. You know, we
Gyps.
have to move around, constantly on the move. That's why also you had the situation in Indiana and in the Midwest, where you had the Ben Ishmael tribe, where you basically had a bunch of people who, for the most part, were so-called black people, but you also had people who were mixed and other people who were displaced who mixed in with them, but they were always having to move around, right? And so they formed their own little migration patterns, but they always had to move because everywhere they went, they were branded as Negroes. That's the part that gets left out. People don't understand. They weren't just moving around because I like to just pick up and move all the time. Most people don't like doing that. They had to survive. Okay. So it was a basic, it was out of survival. They were based in Cincinnati for a while, and then they had to get gone. Why? Because once you are a Negro, you fall up under this foreign um this foreign alien status, and you don't have rights like everyone else. And also, you have to get gone. You can't be here for long. And so made life difficult, extremely difficult. And then on top of that, there was this one guy in that region in Indiana who was practicing eugenics, and he was campaigning for slaughtering those people. If you never heard of the tribe of Ishmael, maybe we could talk about that some other time. But there were people in that area in Indiana. They used to move from Muhammad, Illinois, up to Cairo, Illinois, and I think Morocco, Indiana. But they lived in Cincinnati for a while before they started doing that. And there was a guy who was this guy, Oscar McCullough, who was going he was writing papers and just always making a case for how these people are degenerates. They need to be destroyed. We need to abort their babies. We need to destroy them. They're criminals. We need to lock them up. Same thing they're doing to us now. Okay, so this is what was occurring, right? So they're making us basically undesirables in our own land. And nobody wanted anything to do with them, right? So when you're labeled Negro, you were literally treated like an undesirable. You had no place. You have a limited amount of time to get your little hustle on, and you need to get on up out of here. All right, and so this is what was occurring. Islam, I see Brother Cole Bay.
Islam, I rise and give honors to our great God Allah. I rise and give honors to the Prophet Noble Jew Ali. I just want to come back on that. If you look at it, everything today, if you look at the first projects that ever was built anywhere across the country of America only gave you 2.5 years because they wanted you to be able to, I guess, prosper with nothing. That is the one thing. And another thing too, when you look at how the like our condition after they did that, they gave you that cockamamie excuse. They gave you that one, and they say, "Oh, you're supposed to be able to do something in 2.5 years." The same ghettos that they gave to the Jewish people, they gave to us second class, just like how they gave the Native Americans, so-called Native Americans, because we all the same blood. They gave them that land. So then when they gave them that land, they kept cracking it up and breaking it up and just making it to wherever they wanted to when they needed to. It shows you that, and then these, I wouldn't say people, but these humans came from an area that was right above Africa. They did the same thing to Africa that they did the same thing to us. That's why they called it Africa. And if you look at the European aspect of it, they called themselves Afrikaners, which meant when they came here, they claimed the land to be Africa. Now you see why Morris say like, oh, when you look at the history of it, that this is Africa. Yes, it's Northwest Africa. And actually can be stamped because even the Europeans said that so-called running it. They're not really running it because crumbling, but they're so-called running it. And you can see that in all the aspects. Islam, I yield the floor a little bit.
Islam, what? Thank you for sharing that. Islam, definitely, I agree with you, bro. It's on point. Islam. Does anybody else have anything they want to share?
Praise Allah. I just want to, like, the presentation that you did was like brought so much light, and it's just amazing what the prophet did, just gathering, just not even gathering, just being who he was and telling the truth, and the organization, the temple, and everything, man. Because without this Moorish, we've been cut off from all this history, like you know what I mean. So, and then you know, just the marks that they put on us, like the various ones, they color coded us. All right, the dark ones is Negro, the brown ones with the good hair, you know, quote unquote, got the Indians, the light skinned ones, right? Like a so-called pass for white, we got the mulattoes. You know, you see how they divided us, you feel me? And through the Moorish band, you feel me? That's how we could all unite, and that's just beautiful, you feel me? And thanks for the presentation. The demonstration was perfect. Praise Allah.
Islam, gratitude, brother. Appreciate you too, and thank you for sharing that. That's how they did it to us. You know, I mean, definitely not claiming to have all the pieces, but as we can see in history, like on the record, it's documented for the most part how they did it to us, and they don't teach it to us. They don't come out and say this in school. So it's up to us to establish this and to write the books and to teach it to our children, and also to move on this so that we can get our due, which is due to us for the wrongs that have been done. But we have to move as a collective. It's obviously they're not going to do this for us. All right. So yeah, I just wanted to share that, and just let you know, like, we definitely don't need to overlook any of the words that the prophet dropped for us, that he wrote for us, because everything has meaning, right? Law governs all events. There's no mistakes. Nothing is just thrown in there for no reason. And it's amazing that he used that word marks, and that's exactly what's used in the Treaty of Granada, which is actually pretty hard to get a hold of, to get an actual copy of it in the original language, which I don't know if it would have been in Arabic or Spanish, but pretty hard to get a hold of it. But that's actually in there, that they were not to put those marks on us, and they did it. Islam. All right. Before we do close, I just want to ask if there's anyone who is not a member who's ready to join and proclaim your nationality. Is anyone that wants to proclaim? If not, if you're not ready, I mean, you can always just email us. You can go to mstofa.net. Oh, do any of the sisters have any questions? Any questions in general?
Islam. One question, because of everything that's going on with the corona and everything, we were thinking that, like, say, like on Tuesday, even on Dropbox or Zoom or anything that we can do as far as for our members as well as other members that is on Morris America, could we kind of do something to as far as like a wellness check, like, you know, to see like how you know, to see how everybody's doing this situation. Islam.
Now that's great, especially I mean like with the snowstorm and the pandemic. If anybody done like want to speak on here, you know, I mean that's feel free to contact me on the side and just to make sure everybody's doing good. If anybody needs any assistance, any you know any kind of help at all, like we're actually building a community, and that's what we're here for, to assist each other. So if you want to, I mean, don't feel like you can't hit me up, whether it's on Facebook or send me a text or call. Just do want to make sure everybody's doing good and getting what they need. All right, and I think um, one of the sisters did have a question about traveling or traveling out of the U.S. Um, I would just answer that just by saying, um, just to keep things simple. And as far as traveling, if you need a passport, as I don't think you need a passport to go to places like Jamaica, or you do now. Okay, so yeah, just I would say just for traveling, you just travel with the regular passport, regular USA passport, and now if you're able to, if you want to add your L or your Bay to your name now, and maybe get that on your passport, go ahead. But I mean, I wouldn't say it's any rush. Like if you're able to do that, to do a name change, do that. I have there's a video on our orientation videos. The first video goes over the name change, and I also have like a little short script that I advise people to read. It's basically just saying it is not a name change from your perspective, it's a name correction. You're returning to the ways of your ancestors. And I think it's good to read that because it's on the record. It's on the record from your perspective. The judge or the magistrate, they read it back out to you. So that's recorded from your perspective. You are doing a name correction, returning to the ways of your ancestors. But that's as far as like I keep it simple. That's as far as I go. That's really the only thing outside of the norm that I would do. Get a name change, but let it be known what you're doing from your perspective on the record. And then with that, you can get that on your driver's license, your passport, anything. But and then also like when you're taking pictures, whether it's for a license, passport, wear your turban or fez. And if anyone asks you about it, you just say this is religious, and they'll leave you alone. It's my religious headdress, and they'll leave you alone. All right. Um, and I'm not sure. I think um, did somebody have a question about obligations, getting married, obligation? How we do that?
If you speak on that, what's traditional? Is it an exchange of rings?
Okay. All right. Hang on. All right. So before we go to that one about traveling, are you saying that like when you say get tested, are you talking about the vaccine, the whole COVID test? Yeah. Okay. So hmm. That's a real good question, right? You can stand on your right. You can say that it's against your religion, against your beliefs. But what I don't think that's gonna hold much weight because they're just gonna say, well, you don't have to travel. You don't have to be here. This isn't like a need for you.
Islam, Sheikh.
Islam.
I have a question about it was a snapshot that I took off of Facebook at some point. I've looked for it. I haven't been able to find it, but I believe it said political status, and it listed 1 through 6. And at the top, it said free white person and noble, and number 6 was 14th Amendment citizen, and in parentheses, it had artificial human. And my question is, well, there's 2 of them. Do you know anything about that? Can you explain that? And does something like that come into consideration with our passport? Like, do you get a different passport as a noble than as an artificial human?
You know what? I can speak on what I've heard, but it's not what I know for sure. Like I've heard people say there's this brother who's a sheik who was saying that he was calling, I think it was the DMV to speak about his changing like his race status or whatever on there. And it was actually a sister who was the manager. And she was telling him that I'm trying to remember, like did it say he was listed as white? I think he said that this was like 2-3 years ago. I think that the sister told him that it said that he was white. And he hadn't told them to change his race yet. Like he was going to try to follow that up. And he was saying that once he added his L onto his name, that they did that automatically.
Yes, Islam. I know that through HR.
Right, that's hearsay because I can't prove that. I don't know.
Islam. I know when my name change came back at the end of the year, last quarter, and I started processing that through my human resources. The check boxes for ethnicity, for race, African American, and there was no other option. They said you can pick 2 or more. So I picked white person and Native American. And so I'm sure that somewhere where they record these statistics, we are the nobles of the land and the free white persons. And so I don't know how that comes into play with traveling. And I don't know if like you get a special passport with a different colored jacket or something that indicates, don't mess with me. It was just a question, just a thought. I yield.
Islam, let me speak on that a little bit, because if you, in the history, if you look at the Freeman Bill, who are they talking about? Islam, I yield the floor.
Islam. But like I honestly, I mean, we know that the white is just a title, like it's status, doesn't really apply to race or ethnicity or anything like that. But I don't know, like everything that I've heard from people is like unsubstantiated. I don't have any proof, so I don't really know.
Islam, gratitude, Sheikh, but that's kind of where I am. I'm searching for that proof.
Islam. All right. And then just to go back to the traveling, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know anything that you can say other than saying that you want to opt out of the test because of religious beliefs. You can use the waiver, but the waiver for the most part is for vaccines. But I don't really know anything that's going to hold because, I don't want to shoot it down without trying, just thinking that, they're going to say that travel is not necessary. You don't really have to be traveling right now. Why don't you just stay home if you're against the test and all this stuff? Right. I had to go to the hospital back in August for kidney stones, and they tested me, and it was horrible. I hated it, and I tried to get out of it, and I was saying stuff, and it didn't work. They're like, well, I was in pain too, so I kind of like, I wasn't really trying to deal with the pain. I just went ahead and they stuck that stuff up my nose. I mean, I understand anybody not wanting to do it. I don't believe in this stuff at all. I did not want to do that. right?
They had you in compromising
Yeah,
position.
I was extremely compromised, right? Excruciating pain, and you know, like, well, you know, if you're gonna be in the hospital, you have to take this, and man, it was horrible. So, yeah, I don't know what will work honestly in that situation because they're probably gonna say, well, travel's not essential. You don't have to really be traveling right now. All right, and as far as the obligation ceremony, we do actually have our own ceremony. I have everything, like all of the steps and everything that we do. As far as the temple, like you can just go straight through the temple and just do the obligation. If you want, you can go and get a marriage certificate, like it says in our Moorish literature. If you want to get a marriage certificate from the state, you can do that, and then do the obligation ceremony in the temple. That's up to you. But as far as the temple, we have our own custom. And if I remember correctly, I don't think there's an exchange of rings. But that's not like just a strictly European practice. Like there actually is like a spiritual significance to putting a ring on that ring finger that you put it on. I know there's some um, lines of belief that say that that ring is connected to the heart. What is that? Is that reflexology? Yeah, I think it's reflexology. Says the ring that the ring finger goes on is connected to the heart, and that's why people do that. But we don't do that. But you can. But we do have our own ceremony. I've never done it before, but I know what to do.
You said you don't have to go to the you don't have to get a marriage license.
No, you don't have to. It's in the Moorish literature, like kind of the way that it's worded. It's like, look, if you want to do that, you want to get the license from the state, go ahead and do it. And then, bring it to the temple just like you would if you went to the church. But it doesn't say that it's mandatory.
Islam, Sheikh. So if I decide to choose a Moabitess and I get my certificate, I come to the temple and you marry me?
Islam.
Islam.
Right, Islam. I forget the actual wording. But it's not mandatory that you get the state marriage license.
With or without that, it's official through
Yeah,
you.
with or without
in
it,
the
it's
temple.
official. Islam, yes. From our perspective.
Islam. Islam, Sheikh.
Yeah. Yeah. So Islam, yeah. Either way, it'll be official. All right. Did anybody else have any questions?
No, I just thought something. I said that wrong. If a Moabitess chooses me, I'm sorry, but I had to correct myself, Sheikh. I yield back.
Islam. All right, Islam. Okay. All right. If there's no other statements or questions.
Peace, Sheikh. Islam, are we meeting, having a physical meeting next month? Are we still doing that, or has anybody said anything about that?
Islam, Sister Douglas L. Okay, she's saying around spring break.
Got you.
All right. All right. Any other questions? All right. If not, I want to announce without further ado, we're going to go into the closing of the meeting. Brother Colbey, would you please read the writ to the prophet?
Islam. I rise and give honors to our great God Allah. I rise and give honors to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Rise and give honors to the great Mosai Garvey. I rise and give honors to all Moors on this call. I rise and give honors to all Moors on this planet. To be proclaimed at every meeting. Islam, I am glad to know I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for you to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people of our side of the nation that claimed that I was a joke and unreal. But now, since they seen and found from the government officials of the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that, this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens. They are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you in the past, long ago. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the uplifting of funds, the ones that paid their respects, the ones that paid their divine respects to me and the Moorish movement will be remembered. That's why I'm calling upon all faithful Moors that they increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance and I need it badly. Now, before I need finance so badly as I do at present, so I may shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through the justice because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works, which I have performed in the past few years. Prophet, Noble Drew Ali. To the members of the Moorish Science Symbol of America, Islam. This is instructions from your prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Be faithful unto your forefather divine and national creed, that you will be blessed for your good works that you saw in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and judgment is on now. But the weak can comprehend it not. The end of the time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I Noble Drew Ali. That is why many hearts have turned to stone, many have eyes to see but cannot see. These are to be confined of their sins. These are the trying hours now, dear Moors. And excuse me again. Every week mine. These are the trying hours, dear Moors, and every week mine is overdrawn and drag out the true foundation has been laid and to cause confusion in the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest, and the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your movement. Act accordingly, and Allah will bless you for your good work. Peace, your divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Prophet warns all Muslims to be read in every meeting. I hereby inform all members they must end all radical speeches while they're at home, on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing the cards of Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be a severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, spirit, and justice. And when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings towards the temple or the prophet or violate the covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their rewards from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law that is laid down to them by their prophet If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in the card and button, cease wearing the turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, have found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Jew Ali. And the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans. They do their part in protecting the prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet Noble Jew Ali through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Peace. Noble Jew Ali. Islam, Islam, Islamism.
Right, Islamism. Gratitude, brother. Gratitude. Brother Seymour Bay, would you please read the divine warning?
Islam Sheikh. First I rise and give praise to the Most High, Father of the universe, the great God Allah. I give honors to his holy prophet, the noble Jew Ali, and to the forerunner to the prophet, the honorable Marcus Musa Garvey. Honors to our forefathers and foremothers, and to all you faithful Muslims on the call. A divine warning by the prophet for the nations. The citizens of all free national governments, according to the national constitution, are all of one family bearing one free national name. Those who fail to recognize the free national name of their constitutional government are classed as undesirables and are subject to all inferior names and abuses and mistreatments that the citizens care to bestow upon them, and it is a sin for any group of people to violate the national constitutional laws of a free national government and cling to the names and principles that delude to slavery. I, the prophet, was prepared by the great God Allah to warn my people to repent from their sinful ways and go back to that state of mind, to their forefathers' divine and national principles, that they will be law-abiders and receive their divine right as citizens according to the free national constitution that was prepared for all free national beings. They are to claim their own free national name and religion. There is but one issue for them to be recognized by this government and of the earth, and it comes only through the connection of the Moorish divine national movement, which is incorporated in this government and recognized by all other nations of the world. And through it, they and their children can receive their divine rights unmolested by other citizens, that they can cast a free national ballot at the polls under the free national constitution of the state's government and not under a granted privilege, as has been the existing condition for many generations. You who doubt whether I, the prophet, and my principles are right for the redemption of my people, go to those that know law in the city hall and among the officials in your government and ask them under an intelligent tone, and they will be glad to render you a favorable reply, for they're glad to see me bring you out of darkness into light. Money doesn't make the man. It is the free national standards and power that makes a man and a nation. The wealth of all national governments, gold and silver and commerce, belong to the citizens alone, and without your national citizenship by name and principles, you have no true wealth. And I'm hereby calling on all true citizens that stand for a national free government and the enforcement of the Constitution to help me in my great missionary work, because I need all support from all true American citizens of the United States of America. Help me to save my people who have fallen from the constitutional laws of the government. I'm depending on your support to get them back to the constitutional fold again, that they will learn to love instead of hate and will live according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, supporting our free national constitution of the United States of America. I love my people, and I desire their unity and mine back to their own free national and divine standard, because day by day they have been violating the national and constitutional laws of their government by claiming names and principles that are unconstitutional. If Italians, Greeks, English, Chinese, Japanese, Turks, and Arabians are forced to proclaim their free national name and religion before the constitutional government of the United States of America, it is no more than right that the law should be enforced upon all other American citizens alike. In all other governments, when a man is born and raised there and asks for his national descent name, and if he fails to give it, he is misused, imprisoned, or exiled. Any group of people that fail to answer up to the constitutional standards of law by name and principles, because to be a citizen of any government, you must claim your national descent name, because they place their trust upon issue and names formed by their forefathers. The word Negro deludes in the Latin language to the word nigger, the same as the word colored deludes to anything that is painted, varnished, and dyed. And every nation must bear a national descent name of their forefathers, because honoring thy fathers and thy mothers, your days will be lengthened upon this earth. These names have never been recognized by any true American citizen of this day. Through your free national name, you are known and recognized by all nations of the earth that are recognized by said national government in which they live. The 14th and 15th Amendments brought the North and the South in unit, placing the Southerners, who were at the time without power, with the constitutional body of power. And at that time, 1865, the free national constitutional law that was enforced since 1774 declared all men equal and free. And if all men are declared by the free national constitution to be free and equal, since that constitution has never been changed, there is no need for the application of the 14th and 15th Amendment for the salvation of our people and citizens. So there isn't but one supreme issue for my people to use to redeem that which was lost, and that is through the above statements. Then the lion and the lamb can lie down together in yonder hills, and neither will be harmed, because love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice will be reigning in this land. In those days, the United States will be one of the greatest civilized and prosperous governments of the world. But if the above principles are not carried out by the citizens and my people in this government, the worst is yet to come, because the great God of the universe is not pleased with the works that are being performed in North America by my people, and this great sin must be removed from the land to save it from enormous earthquakes, diseases, etc. And I, the prophet, do herein believe that this administration of the government, being more wisely prepared by more genius citizens that believe in their free national constitution and laws, and through the help of such classes of citizens, I, the prophet, truly believe that my people will find the true and divine way of their forefathers and learn to stop serving carnal customs and merely ideas of man that have never done them any good, but have always harmed them. And so I, the prophet, am hereby calling aloud with a divine plea to all true American citizens to help me to remove this great sin which is being committed and is being practiced by my people in the United States of America, because they know it is not the true and divine way, and without understanding, they have fallen from the true light into utter darkness of sin, and there is not a nation on earth today that will recognize them socially, religiously, politically, or economically, etc., in their present condition of their endeavorment in which they themselves try to force upon a civilized world. They will not refrain from the sinful ways of action, and their deeds have brought Jim Crowism, segregation, and everything that brings harm to human beings on earth. And they have fought the Southerner for all these great misuses. But I have traveled in the South and I have examined the conditions there, and it is the works of my people continuously practicing the things which bring dishonor, disgrace, and disrespect to any nation that lives the life. And I'm hereby calling on all true American citizens for moral support and finance to help me in my great missionary work to bring my people out of darkness into marvelous light. From the prophet, Islam, Islam, Islamism.
Islamism and gratitude more. All right. The additional laws for the Moorish Americans by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Act 1. Grand sheikhs and governors and heads of all temples, all businesses. Each said temple must be approved by the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Before acting upon by any members, let it be finance, property, or any line of life that will cause the members to sacrifice finances, etc., that will cause the support of any group of members. Any former officer that violates these laws is subject to be removed from his office under a heavy restriction, etc., by the Prophet or the Grand Sheikh. Act 2. All members are to attend their ADUP meetings and their public meetings promptly. If a member is found standing around on their meeting period, shall be fined 50 cents on the first case, and on the second, he will be fined $1, which will go in your emergency fund. If member is working, his monthly dues must be paid, and if he has money in the bank, he must subscribe for as much as he is able to the Moorish Uplifting Fund, because it takes finance to uplift the nation. Act 3. It is the lawful and divine duty of every good member, if he is able in finance, to aid me in saving the nation. And if he does not, he is an enemy to the cause of uplifting his own people, and justice must catch you. Let it be he or she, according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, as I have the power invested in my hands, and I will have to enforce the law in order to save the nation. Act 4. All members, while up making a public speech, must not use any assertion against the American flag, or speak radical against the church or any member of any organized group, because we are to teach love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Act 5. All members must promptly attend their meetings and send their children to Sunday school, and the teacher must confirm himself to the questionnaire, and let every member exercise his 5 senses who is able to do so, because out from your Sunday school comes the guiders of the nation. Act 6. With us, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now. And all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained noble Drew Ali, the prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7. All members must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and parcel of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple. Then you are entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, noble Drew Ali, through the guidance of his father God Allah. Islam, Islam, Islamism. Okay, all meetings are to be opened and closed promptly according to the Circle 7 in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Everyone, please rise for the closing prayer. Okay, we rise facing the east, heels together at a 45-degree angle, holding up 2 fingers on the right, 5 on the left. You do not need to repeat after me. Allah, bind our hearts and minds back to our ancient forefathers' divine creed and principles. We ask this in thy holy name in the 7 Elohim. Amen.
Amen.
Islam, Islam, Islamism. This meeting is now adjourned.
Islam.
Islam.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Great build.
Islam, peace and love.
Islamism.
Right, peace and love.